Hey there, and welcome on back. As always, I'm Carl with Target's Attitude, absent-minded professor, knives and all things sharp. It's Monday, actually Tuesday, but meant to do this yesterday. Just didn't have a real good weekend, so we're showing up a day late, dollar short, so to speak. What are we talking about today? Various resources about knives. Yes, if you're anything like me, maybe you're not, but I gotta admit, I tend to be a bit highbrow and tend to take a scholarly approach to various things. So when I start getting interested in things, one of the first things I do is look for a book on the subject. Makes sense. I mean, look at my family. My aunt worked at a museum. My sister is a chemist for DuPont's main research and development lab, but she also works part-time as a librarian. It runs in the family. But books and knives, kind of far and few between, really. I mean, if you're interested in learning how to make knives, that's fairly simple. This one is one that my daughter got me for Christmas. I'm having a blast with this. Let's see here. Simplified Knife Making. It's not a bad read at all. And again, I'm having a lot of fun with it. Got another one here. Where is it? Probably the most popular book for someone who's looking to start making knives. The $50 Knife Shop. I mean, this will have you making knives in just about no time. And some of the stuff they have in here is just, even if you never make a knife, it's still fascinating. Or at least it is for me. But as far as knives themselves, well, I mean, I've got some historical books like this one. I've got a couple other books similar to this that I think they're just great, but they're big enough. I'm not going to hold them up for you to look at on the computer. It's just too big. I'd have to hold them down. You get a few books like this one. This one is still making knives more than anything, but it does have a little bit about the history of knives and all. If you're looking for value, though, you're kind of stuck. I mean, okay, Blade Magazine puts out this series, and at first it sounds like it might be a book that gives you the value of your knives, but no, it's aimed at people who are interested in it. It has a lot of good information. I buy a new copy of this every year. The pictures are just fantastic, but it deals with latest techniques, latest materials being used to make them. It has a list of some of the top custom knife makers in the U.S. So, say you want to find, say, Gil Hibbins, who is pretty much the grandfather of custom knife makers. You could probably find him in there. Eric Long, one of my friends who studied Kempo under the same karate instructor I did, and also appeared on an episode of Forge and Fire. You could probably find him in there. But value of them, not so much. You do have books like this one, which, I mean, Gun Trader is a fantastic name, but unfortunately, this is the latest edition of this book, and if you look in at the front page where it has copyright and all that sort of thing, you find out that the latest version was copyrighted in 2014. They haven't updated in 6 years. There is a book especially on case knives that has been updated since 2018. Still great books to have in your collection, but the information in them is getting a little old. So, where else can you find information about your favorite hobby, or at least my favorite hobby, and hopefully soon to be yours? Well, let's take a look around the web. Probably our best bet. I'll start with going to Amazon, since we were talking about books on knives. And, I mean, here's the latest version from Blade Magazine, the one I already showed you of. Top knife. This is talking about trauma surgery. How to pronounce knives. This is a collection of stories. It has absolutely nothing to do with knives. Knife skills. Another set of stories. Okay, this one, yeah. You know what? This one I could definitely get behind. That looks fascinating. Matter of fact, excuse me, I want to add it to to my wish list. What else do we find? Here's that Total Knife Manual. This is from one of the authors of Field and Stream, and it's not so much about knives or values of knives as it is how to use them and how to choose them. Basically, this guy put in book form what I'm trying to do in this video series. Interesting, but it's about how to use cooking knives. And it's admittedly, sharpening is the same whether you're using a kitchen knife or a hunting knife. But some of the others just, nah. Now this is interesting. The Sure Defense, the Bowie knife in America. I actually referenced some sections of this when I did my video on Bowie knives. And yeah, I had to borrow it from the library because I didn't have a collection of my own. But you know what? Excuse me, but this is getting added to my wish list as well. Sorry. Yeah, I'm doing shopping as I shoot a video. What can I say? Big Book of Knives. Again, doesn't really tell you much about collecting them. Tells you about the different types of knives and how to use them. And Again, everything I'm doing in this video series. And here, I mentioned collecting case knives. And I was wrong. The most recent edition was from 2015. And this was the only one that dealt with value of certain knives. And my God, $455 for a book about case knives? I don't think so. So, where else should we go? Well, let's take a look at a few more sites, shall we? I really like this website. It's all about pocket knives. And this particular page will help you find the value of case knives. You look up, in this case, what I've got up here right now is values of various stockmen. But how do you know? It's listed by pattern number. So how do you know what the pattern number is? If you look at the main blade near the base, it'll give you the model number of that particular knife. And let's take this one. I know you can't see it, but it's model number 4253SS. So we'll look for 53. That would be one of the trappers. But see, it doesn't have the 53 here. But you can go ahead and put in 4253 right here. And it doesn't bring it up. Interesting. Probably because this one is too new. I mean, this one was made in 2010, I believe. But if you look, if it had been a 55 or 54 model number instead of 53, I can then go down this pattern number, the year it was made, description of the model of the bone, or yeah, I can talk, description of the handle, whether it's Delrin, bone, stag, composite, what have you, and the value of the knife if it's in mint condition. So yeah, I mean, quite frankly, case is probably one of the few knives that you can stand a good chance of the value increasing, unlike some others. Let's see here. Here's another one. This one is a Stockman. It's a 33 Stockman. So let's go ahead and look there. And this one has a genuine stag. So, yeah, there's the model number, 5333SS. So this was made in 98. And it's only worth $50. That's more than the one from 1990, which is worth $26.59. Here's another one I've got. It's again a trapper. Let's see here. It's in the slimline trapper. Let's see here, and it's okay. It's a 61048. So that would be 73. Delrin handle, yep. It's worth $47.65. Not a lot. Let's see if I had the bone one made back in 64. It would have been worth $182. One of the other big collecting knives is buck. Now, you got same page all about knives, about buck knives, and they've got a great image gallery. Lets you decide what particular one you've got and do a little bit of research for it. They don't have a good price guide like they do for a case. But what they do have is a discussion board where you can go ahead and once you're registered, you can look up all sorts of things and ask all sorts of questions about buck knives. But that's only buck and case. What happened if you're somewhat of a collector of some other type of knife and you want to find out what the value is? Here's the easiest way to do it. Go to eBay. Search up what you're looking for. Let's say a Spyderco paramilitary E2. And you got all this. You can see what the current bids are. But if you go down to near the bottom, you have at the very bottom where it says show only, click on completed items. Now you only see the listings that have recently been completed, and okay, and by looking at them you can start finding out. This one went for $243. This one, they didn't sell it for what they were asking, but they did take a best offer. This one sold it at $289. Here's a copper handled paramilitary 2, sold for $260. So it gets you a chance to see what people were willing to pay for the knife at the time. And you can go all sorts of things. I know people who used to collect Colt knives back when they were still being made. Again, completed items, and you can start seeing, as you can see, they just weren't, they were pretty nice, they're just not worth a lot. One of the few that is worth a lot is one that, quite frankly, I had trouble selling when I still had it in stock. And that's probably why it's worth so much now. No one wanted it back then, so now people who are looking to complete their collection of Colt knives are scrambling to try to find it. And of course there is the exception to the rule, but this one was the case knife made to celebrate Colt 45. That was not a Colt brand knife. Gives you an idea. Helps a lot. But what about if you're looking for magazines? Here's Blade Magazine, probably the biggest magazine, or best known magazine anyway, devoted to knives out there. They're also the people who sponsor Blade Show every year. I've been a subscriber to them for years, and they are great. And they do have a shop where you can buy books on knives or t-shirts.
Mommy.
But most of them, as you will notice, are just back issues of the magazine itself. Not exactly. They're still fascinating, still worth reading. Just not quite what most people would be looking for if they're trained to learn more about knives and what their values are. Still think you should subscribe, though. Definitely worth it. You've got Knife Magazine. This is one of the newer magazines out there. And I consider it the only one that's a serious competition to Blade Magazine. Has some great information, and they have a lot of great information and some great writers. Then there's Knife Illustrated, which it's definitely worth getting, but I put this as a behind Blade Magazine or Knife Magazine. This is more of a get a subscription to this to round out your knowledge of what's going on in the knife world, more than a this is the best information of what's going on in the knife world. So there is a bit out there. There just isn't a lot out there for you to stock your library with, which for someone like me is a bit of a downer. But there's still plenty of sources out there for information, and in addition to videos like mine or Nick Shabazz or Metal Market, I just name off 3. There are a ton of groups on Facebook. You just have to look. All Knives Matter. Never Enough Knives. There's Taupe Nation, which is devoted primarily to people who are really into Dan Taupe knives. There's Kershaw Fanatics. Everyone on that page is really into Kershaw knives, and some of them have some pretty serious collection of Kershaw knives. There's a page devoted just to people who collect Spyderco knives. There's pages for people who want to collect CRKT, Buck, Case, Wee knives. Civivi is getting really active on their page nowadays. That knife is really taking off with collectors. There's just a ton of information. And of course, there's the old-fashioned news groups and chat rooms. They're still out there. Isn't that hard to find? And believe me, the people in those rooms would love to share their information with you and their knowledge. Yeah, you'll run into the occasional troll and guy who insists on putting down newbies. So, but you're going to get that no matter where you go, unfortunately. And at least in my experience, those people get sat on pretty hard by most of the moderators and other people who are members of the forums and groups. So go ahead, find yourself a group. You also have pages run by various knife makers, various companies that make knives. Blade HQ has their own Facebook page. I've got mine, Targets with Attitude. It's out there. Start searching around. I'd love to have you come to my page and ask me questions. So that would be fantastic. Some of the others, they're willing to help you any way you want. But this is getting a little long. I don't want to ramble on too late. So I'll wish you luck. You take care. I'll post a couple videos over here that I think you might like. Of course, you can always hit that target right there to subscribe. And I'll see you next week. Bye now.